Natalie, our next speaker, comes to us from the UK and from Founders District, where she is the Central Division Director. She's been a Toastmaster for 5 years, and she's finishing her second consecutive year as a Division Director. Next year, she says she'll be the Public Relations Manager in Founders. How does she have time for this? She's a single mom. Her 10-year-old daughter, you can imagine how active she is, but her daughter thinks her mom is always off to eat toast when she goes to Zoom for her Toastmaster meetings. I'm getting hungry now. More importantly for us and why we're listening to Natalie tonight, she works for the local government in the United Kingdom, specifically the Isle of Wight off the southern part of England. And for the last 3 years, she's been working toward her bachelor's in science in public health as part of her public health practitioner degree in England, an apprenticeship from the university in Bristol. Now, in England, a bachelor's in science is much more like a master's here because their high school is much more challenging and their university is much more difficult than the universities that we're used to. So her final exams or presentations will be in July, and she's giving talks like this in preparation for her oral exams. And she'll be giving her final presentation to the university where she will showcase her knowledge and competencies as a public health practitioner. Today's presentation is part of that graduation requirement. So presenting Improving Our Health, a Community Approach. Join me in welcoming distinguished Toastmaster, Natalie Thomas.
Fab. Thank you, Michael. My first question is, how many people are aware of the Isle of Wight Festival? So if we think of Jimi Hendrix, The Who, I am seeing some hands. Brilliant. So the Isle of Wight might actually be really small in comparison to the rest of the United Kingdom, but we do actually have quite an interesting background. So I'm going to be talking today about the Isle of Wight Cardiovascular Disease Library Learn Initiative. And one of the things here, this has been something that I've worked on for the last year as part of my degree apprenticeship. So I'm going to just do a little bit of an introduction of the how and the why, and then we're going to walk through the presentation. So we're really going to understand why this is important in the community, why cardiovascular disease is important to health professionals. Then we're going to look a little bit more into the presentation. We're going to walk through to the final 6 months and the amount of loans that we received. And then we're going to talk about the next steps. And then I'm going to leave you with a quote, which I think when we look at health, even though I am over the pond and you guys are over in the States, you should all be able to really take on board and hopefully empowers you to really take those key actions in improving your health and health of your friends and your family. See, the Isle of Wight, as Michael mentioned, is South Coast, and we are an island of around 140,000 people. So, as Michael said, I am a division director in Founders District, so that covers Irvine, Orange County. So, when I'm saying to my Toastmaster colleagues, I live what would be in American standards in a shoebox because I actually live in a village of 5,000 people. So if we're thinking of the city of Irvine, how many Isle of Wights we could actually put in the city of Irvine is quite phenomenal. The Isle of Wight, as I mentioned, has got a lot of background when it comes to music. And over the summer, we do get a lot of people that will come over here for the holidays. Even though it might be really picturesque, we actually do have a lot of poverty here. So do not be deceived when you're going onto Google, typing up Isle of Wight, there's a lot of challenges here. And I think when we bring in that health perspective, we've got one hospital, only one, for a huge amount of people. So that is really important that we have that preventative health out there. So we're able to really empower people to make those conscious health choices. So as I now move into why cardiovascular disease is really important. So as you can see on the slides, and my slides are very bold because I think why not? And as part of my final exams, we are allowed to be super creative. And I think from that perspective of this is a showcase of my 3 years doing my degree apprenticeship. I want to go big because why not? So bear with the colours, that's all I'm going to say. So, as we look at cardiovascular disease, there's a lot of risks to other health issues. So, if you've got high blood pressure, you're more likely to have a stroke and develop other health conditions. And cardiovascular disease also creates that premature mortality, and in the UK is a leading cause of death. So, this was one of the reasons why this initiative was really important. Because one of the other things with the Isle of Wight, we have one of the highest proportions of older adults living in the country. So we have, especially in the little area that I live, around 85% of the highest levels of people that are aged over 85. So when we think of going back to that one hospital, really getting those positive messages out around all of this is super important. So I'm now going to really start talking about the Library Learn initiative. And one of the things that was really key was the fact that we really wanted to use the community around us to base the library initiative. So when we look at asset-based community development, that is looking at what is out there in the community and how can we use it to the best of our ability. So on the Isle of Wight, we have 7 libraries. Might seem quite a lot for a small place, but we seem to do really well with what we've got here. So one of the first things as part of the initiative was looking at where could we put this scheme. So the scheme, if I just go into a brief nutshell, so you would go to a library to borrow a book. You can here in the UK, and I do know in some states in the US, you can do a similar thing. You can go to a library and borrow a blood pressure monitor and a cuff, and you can take that home for around 2 to maybe 3 weeks. So that was why taking it out into the community was really important. And then a thing as well, when we look at asset-based community development as well, you've also got these key links with other organisations. And the real thing here was making sure that we'd give as many tools to members of the community so they could really take on board those health choices. At the start of the scheme, which was September last year, I hoped that we'd get some loans because it was the first time that this initiative was launched on the island. I wanted at least 10 because we had no idea if something that would work on the mainland would work here. But later in my presentation, I am going to share how many loans we did get over that 6 month trial period. So on the next slides, I'm not going to play it too long, but I'm just going to walk through what these 2 little pictures are. So as part of the initiative, it was really important for me as a public health practitioner to really get that feedback, because in order to have a successful initiative working in the community, you need to have those boots on the ground analysis to be able to say, this is working great. Maybe let's change this and improve it for next time. So one of the things when it comes to the feedback, we obviously had the online way. And if I now move into my video, bear with me 1 second. It will now take you into the paper version of the feedback form. And one of the things which I worked on here was really trying to understand, does paperwork or does online work? And as part of that continuous improvement, I created a QR code to really try and increase how many online feedback forms we were getting, because I think there is that global assumption that everybody's going to move towards an online platform of giving feedback. But actually, good old paper and doing it old school was really beneficial. And we got 34 feedback forms back. And as I move into the next picture, this was the initial poster, which was designed by our communications team. And this was one that we had borrowed from Hampshire County Council. And when I went out into the community and I was plastering it around the community centres and the churches, I saw the opportunity of getting that user feedback to go, does a poster like this actually work? And a lot of that feedback that I gained was, this is really not engaging, it's boring, and we really need to improve it. So if I now play this short video, you're now going to see with that feedback from the community what the version 2 poster looked like. And as you can see here, I just press pause, we've now got a completely different looking poster, which looks so much more engaging. You've got a nice happy chappy that is inviting people to go to their local library. And I think the powerful thing with this poster here, it emphasizes that it is a free thing that you can take home to do. Because I think when we think back to poverty, and if people are living in financial challenges, they might not have $25 to go and buy a blood pressure monitor. So this was really important that we focused on the value of saying that it was free. But one of the other things that I was analysing was, yes, it's great to put everything in a library, but if you're not a bookworm, and I know people will absolutely go to libraries if you like books, but if you're not in that mindset to go to an environment like that, how are you actually going to go there? So working with our NHS partners, we created a little card which will be coming up right now. And this was our invitation cards. So if you'd gone to your medical practice and you'd spoken to a nurse, the purpose here would be you'd get the little card, so it's shaped like a business card, and that would be your invitation message to go, oh, what's this? Then you'd go, okay, I've now got a reason to actually go to the local library. And feedback that we've got from our NHS partners have said that this little card, even though it's really small, has actually been really beneficial at taking those people from the medical practice to the library to actually go, can we go and borrow a blood pressure monitor? As I move now into the next part of the initiative, as part of that continuous improvement, it was really important for me to go out into the community and visit all of the libraries. Because yes, we obviously created the who, the why, and the what, but it was down to the libraries to really interpret this initiative and making it fit for their local communities. And we do have a place on the Isle of Wight called Cows. And I know the amount of people that will spell cows like a cow this is how we spell cows on the Isle of Wight. And your homework is to go onto Google and look up the seven wonders of the Isle of Wight. Because, again, we might be a really small little island just off the south coast, but we're a quirky little place as well. So this midterm visits really helped us get that feedback. So from February onwards, we were able to take that feedback and really focus on improving this initiative moving forward. So in March this year, we hit that 6 month of the initiative, and we actually got 164 library loans, which for me is absolutely incredible. Because, like I just mentioned at the start of the initiative, I wanted at least 10 because there was that unknown of whether something like this would actually really work in the community. And as you can see on this slide, there was those moments where a lot of high activity, but then obviously over Christmas when people are really focusing on eating, people would not be wanting to go to a place like a library to go and borrow a blood pressure monitor. Therefore, it was really important from January onwards that we brought in a communication campaign just to remind people that, okay, you've had your fun eating loads of food. Now you really need to pay that close attention to your health. And this was why, as you can see in February, you've got those key spikes of engagement. And one of the other things with the monthly loan numbers, we brought in a community library later into the programme in East Cowes, and that's therefore why there's a missing gap in their analysis. And I think from that lessons learned, I wish I'd brought them in sooner because just in those 2 months, they had got 11 loans. And I think the powerful thing there is really understanding those communities for that community makeup. So East Cows has got quite a heavy background in shipping. So in order for me to get to the mainland or in a way back to the UK, I have to go on a boat. So we do have a lot of employment in that industry. And you also think people working those manual and routine jobs are, from data and evidence, more likely to either smoke or have bad health. So that was one of the reasons why I was thinking, I just wish I'd brought them in a lot sooner. So as I move into that reflection of this initiative and going back to leadership as Toastmasters, something that we're always talking about, I am a transformational leader, and one of the biggest reflections that I've had for this initiative is the passion that I've had has just been oozing out. And I think because it has been one of my sole projects that I've done in my last year of my degree, it's kind of been really obvious. But when I reflect on that, it's been that, hang on a minute, Nat, not everybody's going to share the same amount of passion that I have, and people are not going to be supportive. And I think one of the things that I've really had to do when it comes to my leadership style, I've had to be adaptable because, yes, we've got Christmas. You guys have Thanksgiving, and over those couple of months, you're focused on being with your family and sharing in big celebrations. So that was where I had to be adaptable of, well, we've got the plan, we've got the goals. I'm going to have to change it up just to make sure that we can move to the start of the year and really take the program to the next level. And I think when we look at leadership, we're always talking about, oh, well, this was great, this was fabulous, but we're never talking about the challenges. And when I reflect on my leadership challenges, really trying to understand that engagement of a couple of the areas on the island. So we have a village called Freshwater, and we've got great old cows, both of those two locations, the loan uptake was really low. And there was me thinking, hang on a minute, why are people not believing in this vision? Why are people not going, yes, this would be great? So I had to work out, how do I take this, communicate in a way that people will go, oh yeah, this would be great to have in the local community. And there was also those key leadership reflections on, well, if we've got competing demands, and especially in government and the NHS, everybody's trying to do a million and one things, that sometimes things might look great on paper, but it might not be the right time for that particular initiative. So as I'm moving to my next steps, now that we're into phase two of this game, we can definitely see that the data has proved that quite a few of the libraries over the east part of the Isle of Wight did do really successful in the pilot. So the purpose there would be to increase the library loan availability. And overall, I would love to have as many islanders take the opportunity for using this game. And if I leave you with this quote, so, health empowerment means giving individuals the knowledge, confidence, and tools to take control of their well-being. Because when people are empowered, healthier choices become possible, sustainable, and transformative. Thank you.